Okay.
We will go ahead and begin with this first session of the Budget Committee and working on the budget for 2021. Comes around pretty quickly. Russell, if you'll call the roll, we'll get started.
Evelyn Hill. Here. Scott Mast.
Here.
Freddie Phipps.
Here.
Rick Snyder.
Here.
And Mike Taylor.
All here, so it is good to see you. I appreciate the effort that you're going to put forth to get through this. We really don't know, how difficult this is going to be at this point. There's yet a lot of unknowns out there, and if you guys and young lady already know, things change pretty quickly in this environment that we live in. So welcome to those people that have called in, and I think Russell has scheduled for at least this meeting and one more or two more to be, so we'll do all four. Do the next four.
We'll do all four that are
through
the month of May, since the governor extended his executive.
Governor extended that order through 29th of the month. So if it's suitable, you guys will just do this through this month. So it says approve the April 16th Budget Committee minutes. We have a copy of those that have been presented to you there. If you want to look those over, and I'll entertain a motion to accept those. They have been presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Freddie Phipps to approve these minutes. Seconded by Ms. Evelyn Hill. Is there any discussion or any questions about those minutes? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed likewise?
Let's do a roll call vote to where I will have it, since it's all audio.
That's fine. I figured if there were no nays, that would signify that everybody did approve, but roll call, please.
Just to be sure.
We'll do that with each item if you would like.
Evelyn Hill.
Yes.
Scott Mast.
Yes.
Freddie Phipps.
Yes.
Rick Snyder.
Yes.
Mike Taylor.
Yes.
Actually, that'll be the last one that we'll have other than the adjournment.
Oh, yes. Those minutes are approved, and we'll move on to the next item is begin the presentation of the budget for 2021. And I think you're wanting to begin, Russell, with County General.
Yes. And before we get too deep into that, you have a sheet that says budgetary changes for 2021 fiscal year. And we'll start with this to kind of just give a recap of what we know and what we, at this point, are still unknowns. There is a 3.46% official salary increase, and I've actually went ahead and calculated that, and it's $30,831 to be able to cover that increase to the officials. Medical insurance, there was no increase for the calendar year that we're in 2020. The insurance committees with the state pools have not met. They will meet later this month. And at that point, they will give us any kind of projection as far as what they, of an increase. And in absence of anything official from the state, I typically start with a 2.5% mid-year increase that would be effective in January. So everything that we talk about medical-wise is taken into account a 2.5% mid-year increase in it.
For 6 months.
For 6 months, since we'd have to cover 6 months of this budget. Retirement rates. Now, we have 2 different sets of retirement rates and 4 different rates within those 2 sets. Our first is what we call legacy. That is the traditional TCRS that everyone's used to. And then we have hybrid, which we'll talk about in a minute. But our legacy rate is the one that has continued to increase for several years. And we're actually going to be able to keep it stable for a second year at 6%. Law enforcement is 9.5%. It's 3.5% above that. And when I say law enforcement, I'm talking about the sheriff and a deputy. They have to be assigned and carry a gun to be law enforcement. Everyone else is still classed as general employees. So your correctional officers and all those folks are on the other side. It's only if you legally carry a gun, we treat you as law enforcement as far as retirement purposes are concerned. Then we get into the new category that we've had in place now for about 3 years called hybrid. Hybrid, that rate is set by the state. It's still currently 9%. And there's 2 components that change yearly with it. One is called the ADC component, which is the actuarially determined composition component, and the stabilization reserve component are the 2 components that change yearly. If the ADC goes up, the stabilization goes down or vice versa, because the three components, those two components, plus the employer's 401k match, which is 5%, which is mandated in the law, still equal 9%. So the top two change yearly. So these would be the ADC component. For the general hybrid is going to be 2.28% starting in July. The stabilization reserve is 1.72 plus the employer's 5% for the match to the 401k makes the 9%. Law enforcement is 0.3% higher than 0.85% higher than the regular hybrid rate of 9%. And it's just a simple change that's in what's called the ADC component. It's a little higher, but those still added together make 9.85%. Now, as we go through the budget, I'll point out, especially when we start talking about the stabilization reserve, where that falls into place because it has its own line item in each of the budgets if we use it. Then our next one is our unemployment rates. We have two, county general, which is 0.6%. based on the first 7,000 of wages, and the highway department, which is currently 3% based on the first 7,000 of wages. And I'm gonna turn this back on, I'm about to die. It was cold in here, then it got hot. Then we get to what is unknown at this time. Workers' comp, general liability. We usually do not know those numbers until sometime in late May or early June. It could be even as it was last year. It was actually late June before we had those numbers. What will a penny generate for next year? That's another big unknown. And we'll get into that in a couple of weeks. I do have a preliminary estimate based on some numbers that Matthew has given me, but I want to confer with Matthew to make sure that those numbers didn't change after lockout and some things like that before we take a look at those. Sales tax, that's going to be another big one this year. At this point, we have data through the month of March. The month of March, our sales tax collections were still up. We will have the month of April here probably in about 2 weeks. And I'm kind of curious to see if that trend continues, or if we start to see that spiral that goes down with it. Hotel motel tax is one that we will see go down. Probably more than likely when we get to the revenue portion, I will probably cut anything above $15,000. Just the simple fact that we probably are not going to collect it. And the $15,000 is our commitment back to the Historical Society and the Welcome Center as the county's portion of that operation. Then motor fuel taxes. Now, this is not going to be a big impact to county general, but it will be a huge impact to the highway department. At this point, they can't give us projections. I know the mayor and I talked some this morning. We're looking at anywhere probably 25 to 40% less. Next year would have been the last year, year 4 of the implementation of the last roll-on of the additional taxes with the motor fuel. But we can't count on that additional increase at this point. So basically, I'm going to meet with the highway department. I'm going to probably call them later this week and try to where we can sit down and meet maybe Monday. And we'll basically, at this point, I'm going to use our projection for this year as our projection for next year. That may be realistic, it may not. But the biggest impact will be that if the motor fuel taxes drop off, it will be an impact to the highway department. As far as wheel tax is concerned, that's another one. At this point, I'll get some numbers from Tammy, but everything appears to be that we're on target, still using about 16,000 registered vehicles in the county. I know that we're still registering new vehicles constantly, and I don't foresee that we will see a drop off in as far any of those taxes as far as wheel tax is concerned. Any questions so far?
Is the motor fuel tax decrease just
Lack of
just people traveling?
Okay,
lack of people traveling.
Okay. And it would, well, it's percentage based too,
It
so
is.
the price is down. So
That does make a difference in how it calculates.
I think they're saying that the traffic flow is down 25 to 40%. I've heard in some cases. We wouldn't think that in Johnson County.
No,
because
that's what I was getting ready to
see
say.
people going
Down
everywhere.
on 4 lane, couldn't hardly get on and off of.
And I don't know if that's based on state numbers.
It is.
Our revenue is based on state numbers or based on county numbers, or both?
I think it's a combination of both state numbers, and then they actually look at what is collected and turned in that's collected in Johnson.
Yeah, I think so too. Russell, just the ballpark in the prior years, the motor fuel taxes is how many K?
Just a second, I'll tell you. Currently, gasoline and motor fuel tax that we have budgeted for this year is $2,050,177.
So 40%, that's a big,
It'll be a big hit.
okay. $800,000. Yeah, I couldn't remember, you know, if it was a large amount or.
Yeah.
Well,
And see, and actually that number in a typical normal year would have increased again because of the last leg of the implementation of what was passed several years ago. So that's going to be a big hit. And I haven't had any in-depth conversations with Jeff yet about what our contingency will be if we see a huge drop-off in that tax, since that's basically 95% of what he uses to operate the highway department on. So that's just one of those unknowns. And, you know, as far as property tax is concerned, I know the mayor and I had a discussion this morning, and we are confident at this point, unless we just see something strange happen in the next 2 months, we've been collecting consistently at 94% or above. And at this point, with the collections that have occurred after this pandemic started, you know, basically Lisa hasn't seen any kind of substantial decrease in folks still paying taxes, that unless something just dramatically happens in the fall, we, you know, we're both the trustee and myself and the mayor, we've had discussions that we're pretty confident that it's probably a safe bet for us to still use 94% as far as our collection rate going into this next budget cycle. And then we'll just have to adjust it either midstream if it's real off, or adjust it in the 21-22 cycle.
she told me this morning that through the end of April, she was at 94.136. That's what she told me today.
Well, the tax sales are still, as long as we keep doing the tax sales, I think we're gonna get pretty good.
She's
turn
doing
on
second
those.
mailings, and she's really encouraged people to come in and, you know, pay
The
the bills.
list on those tax sales is a lot lower than it was 3 or 4 years ago. We
There's not a
started,
lot left when it comes to sale values, really, when you think about it. Makes a difference.
So, any other questions about anything that we've discussed at this point? If not, I do have a few budgets that are prepared. I do have a balanced budget for Fund 115, which is the Public Library Fund, 116, which is solid waste, and I have started loading the budget requests from the officials in the county general. And so what I thought we would do is we'd start with Fund 115, which is the Public Library, and we'll leave county general to last, because that's where we'll spend most of our time. So is everybody fine with the difference? 115. It's up in the corner. Basically, the library board submitted to me to use for calculation a budget that basically consists of, and after Linda and I worked through the numbers, at this point, no increase to the county's portion of the effort, which is currently $45,960. That would be the same as it was in the coming years it is currently in this fiscal year, and we do use local option sales tax to be able to fund our portion of the effort. Then the other component, the other two components is she collects roughly about $9,000 to $10,000 a year in recurring library fees that we put back into the operation. So we're using $9,000, because that's typically where we usually hit in that area. And then the other would be the city's portion. And the city's portion is on that back page under contributions. They submitted a request to the city for an increase from $21,000 to $25,968. And at this point, it's going through the city's process of vetting, just like we're starting the process of vetting all of this. And if the city approves that amount, then this budget would stay balanced. If the city reduces or cuts that out, then the library board's going to have to make a decision as far as how they recommend. Are they going to try to cut some out of their appropriations, or will they come back to the county and ask the county to actually increase their portion of sales tax to be able to fund it and keep it as it currently is balanced? So basically, we have a balanced budget that's been submitted from them that's $80,928. Typically, nothing out of the ordinary in this. I will run down a couple of things. The library board has given their employees small bonuses, usually at Christmas, for several years, and that $1,000 is sort of reoccurring at this point. They did ask that we go ahead and put in a 3% cost of living increase for those 3 individuals, which totals $1,160. And then the related Social Security, the retirement. Since this is a self-funding, I have to deal with the life insurance that the county pays on Linda, the medical insurance, which includes a $192 increase that would be the mid-year increase for her policy. She participates in our 457, so there's a $180 yearly match to that. That's the portion that the library board reimburses the county general for. Then we basically start down through looking at starting with 307 communication. Basically, there's no increases whatsoever until you get down to building and maintenance repair. And with the additional space that was added, we feel that once we get some sense of normalcy, $2,200 is not going to be able to cover maintenance and upkeep as far as just the routine maintenance that goes on to operate the building, including the custodial portion. So we actually have I bumped that up about $1,250 to $3,500. Postal charges are still $500, travel still $300, electricity still $65. Library books and media is the balance point. Any extra, that's usually where we put it, because it's always an ongoing expense that increases rapidly is the purchase of new media. The only other increase, I did bump water and sewer just a little bit to be able to cover, because they have been over this year, and I'll have to bump it a little bit more to make us to year end. Other than the workers' comp increase, that would be based on higher salaries. But this is basically a balanced budget at $80,928.
And our portion?
Our portion is $45,960.
$45,960.
City's portion, proposed city portion, is $25,968, and then she has $9,000 in reoccurring fees.
So how much was the city this past year?
$21,000.
Okay, so 21 even,
21 even.
so $4,900.
Yeah. So any questions about that one as presented?
What will we know about the city's decision?
Uh,
We don't know.
I will call Sheila and see where they are in the process. They typically, I don't know if they're required to have a budget approved prior to the end of the fiscal week by June 30th or not. I know we're in that caveat that we could do a continuing budget resolution. I will have to call Sheila and find out where they are in the process. Any other questions? All right, then our next one, we'll go ahead and just do solid waste. It's also a very easy one to do and balance. Basically, solid waste has 3 components of revenue, biggest one being tipping fees. The $550,000 for tipping fees, we have exceeded that for a couple of years, and conservatively leave it at $550,000 to be able to create some cushion as far as the fund balance is concerned. And then $5,500 for the sale of any kind of materials, metal, anything that they collect that can be recycled, that keeps it out of the landfill that we can sell back. And then other state revenues, $12,500. That is our portion of the higher recycling fee that comes back to the county based on what is turned over from our businesses here in the county or consumers. There's that tax that's charged on all the tires. And that actually flows through the state and flows back to us. Those are the three major components that equal $568,000 that we've operated on for the last couple of years.
Now, the estimated, tipping fees for 2019, 2020, that's still lacking the last quarter?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay.
Oh, and I guess I might as well,
And what percentage is that? How many months is it?
well, it's actually, it would be 9 months because only the March date is in it. The expenditure portion is updated effective through today, but revenue would only be through the end of March. Because the trustees actually has until next week to turn over the revenue for April.
Should be 75%. Just to give you a quick estimate, if you're looking at those numbers.
And I'm reading from my notes, so mine looks different than what you have.
So to get an annual estimate, if we hit that 407 of 1.25,
It should get us somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well, their traffic has
Just
been,
a tad low, because
their traffic has really been up over the past 2 months. Some days they come in and say they've had 200 customers a day.
not a lot, but 75% of 550,000 is 412,500, so it's about $5,000 shy.
should be going up there, buddy.
They're all. And you gotta remember that those numbers are through March.
Yes.
That doesn't reflect that. Which would be 75%.
That's what I'm doing, though, 75%
Yeah,
of the budget, if we got through 75% of the year, would be 412,000.
Yeah, so about 5,000.
Of course, I would think that in the winter months, it might be lower a little bit, I don't know.
Spring clean.
Yeah.
All right, then moving on into our expenditures. We budget for 50% of our solid waste director here. We have 2.6 positions that are equipment operators, which 2 are full-time. One is a 60% position. Then we have actually started in the last couple of years breaking out overtime separately from that. There's several reasons. The biggest reason is when it comes time to calculate workers' comp, any overtime is excluded off. They only base it on the base. They don't base it on the overtime. That's the reason why it's that way. Then the related taxes that are involved with that. If you'll come down to like 327 freight expense, this is the two big, the freight expense and then the disposal fees, which is 359, are a big portion of this. The freight expense is what we're paying Shell Lumber on a daily basis to actually move that solid waste from here to Bristol and back. And then the disposal fees on 359, the bulk of that is what we're actually paying the city of Bristol for actually dumping. And these were shot in the dark numbers that we've adjusted over the past couple of, well, this would be year 3, that I'm satisfied that the 190 and the 195, unless just something's completely out of whack, is going to be sufficient as far as appropriation to be able to cover those expenses for 12 months.
You think freight expenses will see any adjustments since fuel costs are down right now? We got a contract that won't really have any fuel surcharges in there.
Kind of like it went the other way. It did back when the price of fuel went to $4 or whatever the high was, diesel was. Remember, we had that conversation at that time. There was a surcharge, but we don't have it in there that if it goes the other way, that
There's no reimbursement for that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the total of those, that's what we have to pay when the load gets there to dispose it. But then on top of that, the freight
Yeah.
getting it there, is that, so both of those combined is what it's taken to get rid of it.
And actually, the month of March, freight expense, we spent $16,575 for that month. And the disposal that we paid back to the city of Bristol was $15,726. So it's averaging about $30,000 to $35,000 a month.
2,000.
Some months, it just depends on how many loads go out of here, so.
Do we have an item, we probably don't have an item, separate line item for what we have to pay to actually get rid of our tires? I know we charge a fee to collect them, but we also, it actually costs us money to get rid of them.
It is actually incorporated into the disposal fee.
Okay.
The bulk of that is the city of Bristol, but like we do pay the, I can't remember who it is that we pay, but we do pay a.
Yeah, the mulch, they use it for mulch or whatever.
Something, whatever they
But
use
yeah,
it for.
cause Kenneth was telling me we have to actually pay them some
To-
to get rid of those
yeah.
tires. I was just wondering how it compared with what we're getting for the tires when they drop them off.
Well, it's just enough for me just to run an analysis and pull it out to tell you, which I can do. The only other two components that could change in this budget will be 506, which is liability insurance. At this point, we do not know what those numbers are going to be, as well as workers' comp. If we see an increase in workers' comp rates for this class rating for these guys, that would be the two components that still would change. Other than that, pretty well what we see is what's going to be here, pending, later on in the cycle, what is decided as far as a COLA increase, a bonus, or something like that. I'd have to go back and incorporate that. So any questions about 116?
Well, of course, I don't guess we would want to drop down our estimates on diesel or gas, because it could
go back up.
go back up right away, so I assume we want to leave it the same. But I had a question about the gas. I understand that the loaders and all that, diesel fires, what we got down there that burns gas?
Well, there's still,
The truck that Kenny uses to pump, is it gas?
yes, some of that, there is some, it's not all diesel. I know there's a,
And they're causing him to pump once a week now, so we kinda got in a spell there that they were letting that go for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then turned out there was some water standing on top of the tank, and we had an inspection, and he recommended that we pump every week now. Had to do, I think, maybe with some runoff off the hillside that's coming down. There was a problem with the tank, but they thought, keep it pumped out. That's just a precaution. So he's pumping at least once a week out Doolin's Ridge out there. Yeah,
Where do they empty that?
out the wastewater treatment plant.
and the city will send us a nice bill for leachate at the end of the year.
So they'll send us a bill. But I know that vehicle is, I'm guessing it's gas. Yeah, it's just like a,
Well, and I know we do charge off some of my summoner's expense as far as gas too.
And there's
Diesel
a white-
stuff in that vehicle
there's a white truck there that
that they use to.
fuel truck. So, yeah.
That Sandy's truck. Is it on?
I don't know, we're
No,
probably under
we
litter.
we charge Sandy's fuel to litter since it's reimbursed.
Diesel now.
It is down there.
I guess they're older.
So, am I understanding this right? Only a portion of Mike's salary is actually
Yes.
solid waste salary.
50%. We do a 50-50 split.
Okay. And the other responsibility of his is,
He works with
Or EMA.
EMA.
nurse man, okay, gotcha.
So it's a 50-50 split is what we're currently doing with this.
And it has helped to have him down there too. Things are getting cleaned up, the metal pile has gone way down, the tires have all been hauled off. Last time I was down there, there were just a few in the building. A lot of the junk around the inside of the building that got cleaned up, and hopefully we're gonna get the trustees back when they get out, maybe do some painting down there on the inside of the offices and that kind of thing. So he's doing a good job down there, I think. Just frees them other guys up to be doing what they doing, loading, and keeping the trash going.
And also, let me do say, the accounting system will generate an estimated fund balance. Those numbers are not correct. It calculates it based on this point in time. That would be roughly, like in this case, it's showing a fund balance of 261. That's probably a true estimate of what their fund balance is, but that's by no means will be final on any of these. Especially like when we get to county general, you'll see a big disparity with it because it's averaging the expense plus the revenue and a bunch of other stuff to come up with all of that. So any questions about 115 or 116? Because we're going to shift gears completely and we'll start our journey into county general. All right, basically, where we stand with county general, I have received all but one department request back, two department requests back. One should be forthcoming here in the next week or so because I did meet, it's the senior center, I did meet with Kathy and Dr. Payne last week, and she will be, I told her that, no hurry to submit it at this point, that it's later, she filed later in the budget, but I would need it here in the next week or so. And then the other one that I do not have back is from Judge Hawkins. But we do have budget requests or departmental requests back from everyone else.
We'll have to reflect on Kathy's one we did to.
Yes.
From what we just voted on a few
Yeah.
months ago to increase wages and get her some help.
Yes, and we'll get to some of that once I get the rest of hers back. So basically what I'm going to do is we're just going to start at the front and we'll just move forward. At this point tonight, we will bump over 1500, which is the Election Commission. And what we'll do is in the next couple of weeks, we'll actually have a representative. I know Sherry will be here, and typically I think the chairman, the election chair comes as well. We'll actually have them in person here because we are coming up on a cycle of 2 elections. So there are some pretty substantial increases in some areas that it usually helps if they're here. And then the only other department head at this point that I'm going to ask to be here will be the sheriff because of some of his requests that he's asked for in his budget. So we'll probably bump over the sheriff's department as well so we can coordinate a time for them to be here.
Sherry was saying she wanted to talk about her because she was saying those weren't increases.
They're not. They're not. I mean, it's just simply the money that we have to stick in to be able to do the 2 elections. But it is an increase to the budget, which is an increase that we have to offset with the revenue.
Higher than last year.
It will be higher, some higher than last year. All right. So our first one, starting at the very beginning, which is County Commission. This is where all of you guys are paid from. Looking over here to my notes. Basically, 15 commissioners at $200 times 12 is $36,000 a year. The related payroll taxes that are involved with that. We have a total of 10 commissioners that participate in retirement, and we have a split. Some are in legacy, some are in hybrid. So that will be, you'll start seeing down Object Code 217, which says Retirement Hybrid Stabilization. That is that second component of the hybrid, of the hybrid rate of TCRS, which will be 1.72% next year. Then the difference between the 9 and the 1.72 is actually budgeted in 204, because some of that is charged directly. It's charged directly there, and then I actually flow part of that out to TCRS, and I flow part of that out to Empower Retirement Solutions, who is the 401k provider for the state. But moving down through that, really no increases at this point that I can point out. We'll go over what's in dues and memberships. What is currently in dues and memberships is we pay our association dues to the Tennessee County Services Association in the amount of $1,225. Last year we put back in at the mayor's request the Tennessee County Mayors Association, which will be $1,350. The First Tennessee Development District, which is $4,871, and the Chamber of Commerce dues, which are currently $100. And those added together are the $75.46. At this point, that is the only association dues or memberships that we pay as far as representing the county as a whole. There's several others that are out there. There's a County Commissioners Association dues as well that in the past we chose not to pay, but these are the ones that are currently here. And the only other increase that would be there is in line 349, which is printing, stationery, and forms. This is the money that's used to actually print the budget. And it's been a learning experience printing the budget since we moved away from CCAS doing it for us. And so it's been a learning experience for both me and Dustin to be able to fine-tune that, to be able to get it back into a format that we're used to seeing, and that also includes black and white and color. And so that increase, some of that, not all of that $1,294 is for the budget. There was a couple other things there, but it roughly takes about $1,000 a year to print 60 copies of our budget and bind it together. Then travel and staff development, those two are added together, is basically being travel for our folks. It's travel. $1,500 basically covers, for the most part, fuel that's used in the Explorer, the white van. We actually charge MA to this. There's a couple of quirky things that happen with that, but the $15,000 is like if, for instance, if I go to a meeting, or the trustee goes to a meeting, or the county clerk goes to a meeting, we use that staff development to charge that travel to it, to segregate the two out. So
that's the best place to have it on the county commission list of the budget.
It probably isn't, but that's where it happens to be. Well, in the event, like for instance, if someone from the commission, well, case in point, last year when Megan McEwen went to Washington, D.C., the county covered her expenses and we charged it there as well. It's just it's one of those, it's always been that way, and I've sort of tinkered with it and segregated travel, local travel out from staff development travel, because basically if we're paying someone for an overnight trip, it's usually staff development related. That's the reason I do that way, where we can segregate the two out. Technically it probably needs to be somewhere else, but I sort of leave it there because if the commission travels, we're going to charge it there as well. So actually, when all that's said and done, there's just a slight increase from $79,000 to a little over $80,000 next year. Then our next is the Board of Equalization. This is where we pay the Equalization Board when they meet. I did bump that from $1,000 to $1,100 because last year we did pay out $1,050. And actually, I think I've actually got to amend the budget to reflect that this year as well, to keep from having an audit finding because I let that category go over. So I bumped that from $1,000 to $1,100. Then our next one is other boards and committees. This is where we pay for Beer Board, we pay for when the industrial development, when Jerry's Bunch meets, anytime that we're paying a committee member that is not a commissioner, we pay it from here. And then what we basically do, like for instance, the ADA committee, when the ADA committee meets, we pay those committee members from this line. If they are an employee of the county, when I say employee of the county, I mean both county general and school, I'm required to run that as payroll to be able to collect the TCRS portion. So that's the only change is, like if it's, you know, Sally Smith's on the committee and she's not a employee of the county, we pay her directly through the accounts payable system. But if I were, not using me as an example, but using me as an example, if I were on that committee, then that stipend would be paid to me through payroll. That's the only difference is there. That's the reason why those payroll taxes are attached to that, is to be able to cover that. But no increase to that one. Then we get to the mayor. This is the mayor's budget. And basically, the 3.46% increase that would be applied to the mayor's salary next year is $3,116. And I'll point that out as we go through every official and the related payroll taxes that are on that. And other than coming down to data processing services, this is where we pay local governments, data processing corporation, our maintenance fees, to be able to provide us with customer support, as well as the ability to be able to remotely access our software and for us to use their software. That goes up every year. There is an increase that's there. Other than that, that's the only increases that would be in the mayor's category, unless the mayor sees fit to change some of it.
The lease payment, that's for the...
That's the copier cost. Yeah, operating lease payments scattered throughout the budget, those will be copier leases. We have moved away from owning copiers to leasing copiers. We currently lease copiers off of the Canon state contract, which to me is the best thing in the world, because if you bought one, by the time you got it paid for, it was worn out, it was time to replace it. And with Canon, it's an easy turnaround off the state contract. We can replace the copier within 45 days. Some are on an older contract than the newer contracts. The newer contracts, actually, we pay for the copies as well. The older contracts, we do not. So as we go through, you'll see that operating lease payments are the copiers. All right, then the next one is the county attorney. With the change that we made for the county attorney, moving him from a AP stipend to a salaried stipend, reflects that, which would be, we pay him a $500 retainer each month, times 12 is $6,000, and the related payroll taxes that are involved with that. The only other increase that I'm going to do is I'm going to bump legal services from $11,650 to $15,000. It's just me doing that because we've already overspent what we have there this year, and if we can ease that up every year, that helps to lessen that burden going to fund balance to be able to cover any kind of unexpected legal fees that we may incur, either from the county attorney or another attorney. So with that, there would be a $3,350 increase for the legal services for next year. Any questions so far? I guess my next question is how long do you want to go tonight? It's 6 o'clock.
I don't want to finish this page, at least.
Well, the next one would be the election commission. We're going to bump over it. So we'll go all the way to the Register of Deeds, which is $5,600.
Do y'all want to do those? Register of Deeds, maybe this, at least down to county building?
We can. I mean, I actually have things programmed up to the sheriff's department, which would get all the officials minus the election commission up to I stopped with the sheriff's department today.
Proceed.
We're here.
Okay,
Proceed.
that's good. Because actually, my goal, and the mayor and I talked about this morning, that, and this may be a little fast forward thinking, but my goal is for us to finish and go to recess session in June and approve this budget in July, as opposed to approve it in August. Because the sooner we submit it, the sooner we get the approval back that allows the trustee to order the tax rolls, and it also will free up anything for us to do as far as some other projects that may be in the mix as we move into the next cycle. But moving on with the Register of Deeds, the elected official, their increase is $2,698, and this will be the same amount for the trustee, the county clerk, the circuit clerk, and the clerk and master. It's all 20, and the property assessor. It's all $2,698, which is the state mandated increase. The only other increase that the Register of Deeds asked for was a $500 increase in printing, stationery, and forms, and a lot of that is she bumped it up, and at that point I just noted that it's in there as a $500 increase. Other than that, in the related increases in the payroll taxes and the dues and memberships, several years ago the commission or the budget committee recommended to the county commission to only pay coat association dues for the officials. So that's all that we actually budget, that I will actually use taxpayer money to pay. Any other association dues that they have to pay out of their own pocket, but their coat dues, we actually do pay on their behalf because they are the biggest ones. And the coat dues for the Register of Deeds, as well as the trustee, the county clerk, the circuit court clerk, and the clerk and master, next year will be $587 apiece. That is a $27 increase over this current year. Operating lease payments.
What do we get for those?
It's basically, it's an association. I know, I'm going to use the trustee as an example because she shares sometimes. When they go to these meetings, a lot of times they will do updates, like in her case, to the chart of accounts, because she and I both work very closely with the chart of accounts. They'll go over any kind of legislation that's in the pipeline that could potentially affect something that could have an impact to county government. I know they're tailored, the Register of Deeds, they deal with that group, they deal with things that are in that realm there, trustee, the clerks, especially when you get to the clerks of the courts, both the circuit court, the general sessions, juvenile, and clerk and chancery court, they all have meetings that are tailored to legislation and changes that affect them as far as their operations concerned.
And I might speak about the mayor association one. One area where it really helped us last year is they become a very strong lobbying group for counties. And one area they really helped us in was this internet sales tax thing. It was the case that last year, anything sold on the internet, that sales tax, you know, now they're charging as much sales tax as they can. They're trying to get anybody that's selling things in Tennessee to start charging sales tax. Well, a year ago, those sales tax were broken out in the very same increments that sales tax is broken out nowadays. The city, between the city and the school, I think they were getting 92%. We were getting like 8%. We got very little bit of sales tax of anything that was sold, you know, inside the city. Plus, we were getting very little sales tax of anything sold over the internet. This mayor's association, the fellow that's president of it is named Mike Harrison. He used to be county mayor, and then he was state legislator, and now he's president of this mayor's association. And he leads up a good lobbying effort to take to legislation in the Senate. They changed that law, and it was through this mayor's association and the pressure they were putting on this legislature, that in the past year, internet sales now, the sales tax are paid where it's delivered. So if you look at us, you know, 3,000 people in the city, the rest of those 18,000, say 15,000 numbers scattered out in the county, we're now getting a good share. So starting back in November, each month he sends out a difference from last year what the sales tax revenue for Johnson County has been. All the counties across the state, they send out not what it's prospected to be, but what it really turned out to be. So it's averaging about $7,000 to $8,000 a month more. He's attributing that to the internet sales. So anything goes out in the county, anybody ordering stuff, which generally is going to happen in Johnson County, we're getting a lot fair share. So we're up about $35,000 this year. November, December, January, February, and March, I guess, is in the last report I had seen, we were up about $35,000 over last year, and they're attributing that to internet sales, because, as you know, people are buying a lot of stuff.
Well, it'll help a lot more this year, because you know
People are buying it.
buying that way.
So just because of that effort of all the mayors being in this association, it gives a good amount of power to go and say, here's the guy who's carrying the brunt. He's saying, you know, we're carrying the schools, and we're carrying the road department, and we're carrying a lot of things for the whole county. We need to be getting our fair share. So they're there to fight, I think, for the county, and I think we can see some benefit from that. Just, I can speak to that one. Code, I think Russell.
Mine are only like $200, I pay them, and I get a bunch of emails.
See, that's me. I'm not even a member of the American Congressman Survey and Mapping, because I don't see a benefit.
Well, I get like that, well, just for the county attorney one.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't pay for Tennessee Bar Association or anything like that. The county attorney one actually is worth it. Because I get
I think the
those
mayor one
emails
is
of
too.
Change in legislation that affects us directly, and plus I get updates on my tax law.
There's two, there's like other ones too from mayors.
I figure those are probably, they probably get the same thing with theirs.
County Executives of America, I don't think I would spend the money for that one. It's more of a national organization, but this county mayor's Tennessee thing is very specific, and he knows me by name if I call him, you know, and they can answer questions. But you're right, not all of them I think are beneficial.
And like you said, seems the closer, the lower level it gets, the more benefit it is, because that's national stuff, you just throwing money in a big old pot.
Case in point, where we pay the Tennessee County Association dues, I actually get all of the legislative updates and all that stuff from Connor.
There is a Connor. Yes, we're in that one.
Yeah,
That's
I
basically
get
that
all
was
that information as far as when the legislature's in session, anytime that there's changes.
Yeah, you do get those changes.
I've been able to see all of the executive orders that deal with COVID, the whole 9 yards as well. So there's a lot of information flows back out. Sometimes you have to sift through part of
You
that.
gotta pick and choose the ones you think that are benefiting, you know, your office. I think some of them can be beneficial, but like you say, there's some I don't think are.
Any other questions about the Register of Deeds? If not, we will move on to the next one, which is county buildings. This is where we pay for the majority of our custodial supplies, the majority of our electricity, gas, water, and sewer, those kind of things like that. Going down through here, I've arbitrarily put in a $1,500 bump for custodial supplies, moving it from $6,000 to $7,500, just to help to offset the fact that we have spent a lot more in the last couple of months for custodial supplies, and really do not see that going down much as we move into the next fiscal year, as we're more conscientious about keeping, you know, hands washing, doing the hand sanitizers, those kind of things like that. And Dustin has done an excellent job scrounging around both in stores and on the internet to be able to keep the county supplied with some of the most basic things, such as paper towels and toilet paper. At one point, it was hard to even get paper towels and toilet paper. So I did a small bump that's there. Then electricity, I left the same because I believe the $38,000 will more than cover us again for next year. Natural gas, I left the same. I did decrease water and sewer by $2,000. Possibly could go $3,000. One thing I've got to give the mayor credit for, he's worked diligently in the courthouse to take care of some water leaks, and that is reflecting now in the budget. We basically have spent half of what we budgeted for water and sewer, and we're 3/4 of the way through the cycle. So, and I sort of we average about $500 a month. I did 5 times 12, 6,000. So that's the reason I decreased that to 2. Other charges, that's just a catch-all. We stick a little bit of money in there to cover miscellaneous building improvements if we would need them. So basically, this is it's actually a $500 decrease over what we currently appropriated from $85,500 to $85,000. So any questions about buildings? All right. Next one's mine. And in concordance with the agreement that we had with me obtaining the CCFO certification, which is a certified county financial officer, with me obtaining that certification and the caveat of me keeping that certification, one of the things was that the prior budget committee as well as this budget committee agreed to equalize my salary to the same as what we pay the elections administrator. So my salary reflects a $2,600 increase, which is also reflected in the $30,000 increase that I gave you earlier, to reflect that increase for me as well, moving my salary to $69,000 next year. Then I have two other positions, and actually because of changes in personnel that I've had, I had a retirement and I have a new person that we're paying at a very much lower rate. I'm actually able to decrease and take money out of the budget to be able to cover the salary for those two ladies that are in my office. The only other increase that I would have would be in data processing to cover my maintenance fees for us to be able to use the accounting software. And then I did make a small increase in office equipment. One of the things that I have been doing is we've been replacing some much needed worn out furniture. And we are to the point that we are to my office, and my desk is pretty, but it's falling apart. And we bought new desks for the other two out front, and I feel it's time that I can replace mine. So it will take roughly about $2,000 to buy a new desk setup for me sometime after the start of the next fiscal year. So that's what the increase is for the office equipment. Any questions about my category? All right. If not, we'll move on to purchasing. This is Dustin. This covers Dustin's salary and the related costs. The only thing that, and Dustin, it's been a busy day, that he did mention some time back, he does have a proposal for some contract management software. And as soon as he's able to give me a number to use for that, I'm going to come back and program that in to his category. That would be an increase over last year. But other than just simply covering the increases that were naturally occurring, he's not asked for any other increase in his category other than that management software. And I do not, he mentioned a number to me, but I do not remember what it is. But I will get that number and have it next week. So any questions about purchasing? All right, the next one is property assessor. He told me to hold tight. I bet he's going to be able to give it to me here in just a minute. The next one is property assessor. This is where Matthew's paid from. He has a $2,698 increase, which is the state mandate for him. And then he pays for his deputy from here, and then he pays for his other two folks in reappraisal, which we'll get to in a second. Matthew has asked for no increase in the property assessor's office. He has asked for some increases in reappraisal that we'll talk about in a few minutes, other than the salary increases that are occurring that are mandated at this point. Then our next one is reappraisal. Now this is where he pays for his other clerical person as well as he pays for his field surveyor. And Matthew, because we are going to come up on a reappraisal cycle next year, we're going to have some additional fees that are going to have to be covered as far as what we pay the state of Tennessee, as well as what we pay some of the third-party vendors that does some of the verification of the personal property. And so therefore, data processing and other contracted services, there are a $3,000 increase to one and a $2,000 increase to the other, for a total of $5,000 more that he's asking for to help cover those expenses that will be related to reappraisal. And then we will bill the city for their portion of the reappraisal, which is currently $5,200, and Matthew will calculate that once we've completed the actual reappraisal to see if that number increases or decreases. Any questions about that? Oh, he said something to me here. Let's see what it says. Now, Dustin, you expect me to be able to read that? It looks to me like the contract management software he's looking at, we would have an initial fee of $2,400 and then an ongoing annual fee of $900. So we're probably looking somewhere in the range of about $3,500 to be able to implement that software that would help him tremendously as far as controlling contracts and those things. And he told me no. So I must have said something incorrectly. $900, is it just $900, Dustin? I'm gonna unmute you so you can talk. All right, can you hear?
Yeah, are you there?
Dustin? Yeah, help me out here.
Okay, so that is with our existing customer discount and only one user. Since I would have to just be the one that would access the software, but we would be able to use all of the software for any kind of contracts. We could upload those. Think of it as like registering a deed. We would upload the contract document and we could put in dates into it for anything, and not just purchasing, but if we have a lease agreement for 5 years for one of our buildings, I could upload that, and 6 months prior to that lease expiring, it'll let us know, basically. So it will be $900 for the first year. I think it's like 3% possible increase each year after that.
So I was adding the two together when I should only use the one.
Yeah. We don't need but one user. We'll make it work.
So what I will do is I will actually go back and I'll put that $900 into his category. Had it partially right, Dustin. Help.
You got it.
And in the long run, this, like Perry mentioned, this will be a cost savings to us, because we have had some instances occur where contracts have slipped through the cracks and have expired, that we've had to do a very rushed up job to be able to get something back in place. And this will actually help to manage part of that. Am I correct, Dustin?
Yes, that, as well as it will be able to put it in one place digitally. So with possible administration changes or employee changes, as long as the login is still active and it's paid up each year, those will be able to be found and not stuck in a file somewhere and got lost.
Okay. All right. All right, Dustin, I'm going to mute you back. I like this thing after I sort of learned how to use it. Well, see, first thing I did was he told me go in and uncheck this box to where everybody mutes and you control who you unmute. It is nice. All right. So basically, back to reappraisal. We're looking at roughly a $5,000 increase for Matthew to be able to cover those reappraisal costs that would occur next year. Then our next one is the trustee, and you just tell me when you want me to stop and we'll pick up here next week. Trustee, again, a $2,698.
Oh, y'all want to keep going for a little bit?
It's about 15 after 6.
6:15. 15 more minutes.
I can just about be through most of it, 9 or 15. All right, moving on.
But don't not ask questions because of that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll stay as long as you need to be. Trustee's office, the official, the $2,698 increase that would occur to her as far as mandated by law. And then her next increase other than the related fringe cost would be her data processing, which is with local government. And actually, I have that one calculated out. It's about a $700 increase over last year. Her coat dues increase of $27. And then the operating lease payments is the copier. And we actually, there's a decrease there because we actually changed out and put a newer machine in. With a newer machine, we have a lower cost as far as a monthly fee to use the machine, but we do pay for the copies that she uses. So it's sort of an offset, but it's still a cost savings. And then moving on, she's asked for a marginal increase in printing, stationery, and forms of $200. Other contracted services for her is where part of the taxes, she actually has an outside vendor print those, and then they send them to her, and they actually put them together. Like for instance, as an example, I get like 6 different notices. They'll pull those 6 notices and put them together to where they mail it to me in one envelope as opposed to me receiving 6. So they she does that as a courtesy to the residents and the taxpayer, but also on the same token, it does help save on some of the costs as far as postage is concerned. But it roughly costs about $2,300 to $2,500 a year for her to actually have that outsourced to print those documents and send them back to her. So that's what the contracted services is. She's asked for no other increase other than that marginal increase that's there. So any questions about the county trustee? All right, if not, next one's county clerk. County clerk, again, the official receives a $2,698 mandated increase. Other than the related fringe costs that are related there, there's the $27 increase for her coat dues. She does have a copy release, and actually she is not asking, she is asking for a $500 bump in printing, stationery, and forms. Other than that, that is it. And I mean, if you like, I can tell you the number of positions and those kind of things like that, but I can actually bog you down with too much detail. If not, the next one would be circuit clerk, circuit court. This is where Melissa's paid from. Again, a $2,698 increase to the official, which is mandated. Other than the coat due increases, she has a $925 increase in data processing services, which is the increase to local government for the use of software. Then the next increase, she's asking for a $4,000 increase in other supplies and materials. And the reason why, she put a note on her budget request, they're anticipating having at least 2 murder jury trials that will occur sometime in the 2021 cycle. And those are usually multiple days, and it does get expensive to be able to feed jurors. And so we're doing a bump. She asked for a $4,000 increase at this point. I think that's probably a relevant increase to her to be able to cover those anticipated jury trials, because if there are multiple days, it does get expensive as far as trying to, you know, some days they're feeding them 2 meals a day, things like that, and it doesn't take long to run through $4,000 to be able to cover that.
Where the first one will last a week. The third one go late. So, you know, get a lot done in one day. That's gonna cost us 2 meals either way. But other than that, hopefully after the first one, depending on what occurs, maybe the other 4 will go down.
Yeah, should that happen, could we use that money for something else?
Yes, we sure can. We can move it.
Amend it to
We can move it somewhere else. And then the only other increase is she's asking for a $500 increase in her office equipment. She is in dire straits of needing filing cabinets, and we're constantly scrounging around trying to find filing cabinets for her. And so she's wanting to designate that $3,000 to buy filing cabinets. I know one of the things that we're actually doing in this building, I'm converting the way we store things, and actually I'm removing filing cabinets. And what we're doing is we empty filing cabinets, we're sending them to Melissa to use, but she's needing to replace some of what she has upstairs in her office because some of them are death traps, so to speak. And I think at one point we had a discussion about going to lateral files. Lateral files hold more, but they're more expensive. Actually, I love lateral files after I converted all mine to lateral files.
I actually went away from them, went back to the regular ones. As far as the price per cost, but I have some of both.
So that would be the other increase that she's asking for, would be there.
So altogether, you're looking at, $8,000.
Yeah, about $8,000 increase. All right, so our next one is the General Sessions Court. This is where we pay for the General Sessions judge. The judge is on a different cycle. His increase is based on the Consumer Price Index, and his increase is $1,735 for next year and the related cost. The only other increase that we have Down in data processing, there's an increase of $423 to cover the software maintenance for the software that he uses through local government. Then in one of these rare cases, there's going to be about a $10,000 decrease in printing stationery and forms. One of the things that the commission approved earlier this year was us to move to a subscription service as far as keeping law books and those things updated with Thomson Reuters. And we have seen a substantial decrease in what we're paying out for that. And I'm just making a stab in the dark using roughly $600 a month to cover that. And I'm going to cut that line item by $10,000 and see if we can make it hold to be able to get those expenses more in line. All right. Then our next one, tell me if I'm moving too quick, is Chancery Court or the Clerk and Master. Again, the official is going to receive a $2,698 increase. Other than the fringe, there is a $1,091 increase in data processing to cover her maintenance fees with local government, $27 to coat dues. And then she did ask for some nominal increases in printing and stationery and forms from $1,200 to $1,500, office supplies from $1,300 to $1,500, and $1,000 for office equipment. After this, we've got two more, and I'll be up to where I've stopped. Any questions so far? All right. Our next one's Juvenile Court. All right, Juvenile Court, we deal with both a youth service officer and a social worker. The social worker is actually funded through a grant called Safe Baby Court. So as we go through, I will try to point out the difference there. But we have a youth service officer, and there is a substantial increase in that salary because of looking at several things that I believe the judge and the mayor, and if I misspeak, please tell me, but experience is a big factor in finding someone who is effective in being a youth service officer. So we did a substantial increase in salary when we hired the current youth service officer that we have, and I'm just simply now catching that up into next year's budget. Now, some of that actually does cover, there's an estimation to be able to cover some overtime that may or may not be used.
And he has, I think he has a bachelor's degree.
He does. And I'm going to tell you, Cameron is phenomenal.
They kept telling us we're going to have to hire 2 people to run that job, but by finding someone who has some experience and good work ethic and whatnot, he's going to be able to do that without having to hire that second person. And in fact, we didn't have to pay $20 an hour, and I see him regularly coming downstairs, getting the vacuum cleaner and vacuuming his office and the judge's office. He'll do that probably twice a week before. So doing a good job. He's keeping everything caught up. Working on some grants that need to be sent in. He was doing all the paperwork for that.
We do have
good skills.
We do have a monitoring deficiency that he's trying to get cleared up as well.
More money, but we didn't have to.
Yeah. I mean, the long and the short of it
so far,
was.
he's done a great job.
He's doing a great job.
And I think it'll be well worth that increase to get in there. Cameron Stanberry.
Then our social worker, who is funded through the Safe Baby Court, is Leah Charland. That salary is her salary, and that also does include some overtime that's factored into that as well. Secretary, Melissa's office, one of her girls provides some clerical support to the juvenile court, and it's roughly about 35% of that person's salary that we reflect over in the juvenile court side. So that $7,800 is roughly about 35% of and I've got a name written down, but I don't believe she's actually the one that has the juvenile right now, but we do charge part of that salary off. Other than the related cost, there are a couple of things that are new. We're picking up some data processing services in this category for the first time. One of the things that Dustin and I are trying to do is we replace computers. We have found out that if we buy them through local government, we get that maintenance support that's there. And actually, the juvenile court uses some software that is local government, so it only makes sense to buy a computer through them. to where if there's a problem, they're gonna fix it. So there's a $170 increase to be able to cover a partial year of maintenance on a new computer that we bought for the youth service officer when he went in. Copier lease, the travel goes back to the Safe Baby. No, that one does not. That's just $400 that's stuck in there to be able to cover miscellaneous travel that the youth service officer might have to do. Now, one of the things that I'm gonna make a change, and I've meant to do this for a couple of years. The Regional Detention Center for years has been treated as other contracted services. It is a contracted service, but it's really more of a contractual agreement with a private agency. So I'm going to make a change. We're going to flip-flop that $44,000 from $399 and actually put it in $312. So the Regional Detention Center, that $44,000 is in contracts with private agencies. That's what that is.
Do y'all understand what that pays for?
Is that the youth detention center in Washington County?
Yes,
down
and
there?
we're in the deal with, with several counties in this district to provide that service, so, I think so. Is it like $180 a day or something now, I think? So if we get a juvenile sent there, it costs you $180 a day. There have been occasions, when this money's been $56,000.
Yes, it sure has.
$62,000 maybe 2 years ago or something.
So knock on wood, through the end of April, we've not had a juvenile that has been placed there that is in Johnson County's custody. So we're simply just paying a monthly service fee.
Our part to be a part of it.
To be part of it. And it's roughly somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 a month, depending on the number of days that are in the month is how it's based on a calculation of a daily rate. So through the end of March, which is when I ran this printout to use for notes, we spent a little over $16,000.
And should any of y'all ever want to do a tour of that place, it's something valuable anytime, but just call them, say that you'd like to bring a group of commissioners or some stakeholders to see what we're paying for, they'll be happy to do that too.
And then moving down through the rest of it, there's staff development money, which is Safe Baby Court. When it's all said and done, it totals out to $158,831, and I offset that with $59,000 worth of projected revenue. $50,000 being the Safe Baby Court, which is a balance point. There's $50,000 worth of expense to offset the revenue. And then we do have a multi-year contractual agreement with the state of Tennessee to help provide money back to offset the youth service officer salary, which is roughly $9,000. So there's 59, so roughly the net effect is a little less than $100,000 that we actually put in local money into this category to make that work. And then I have one more category and I'm finished. The other one is Courtroom Security. This is an ongoing that's simply based on the fees that are assessed by the court. Some years $7,500 hits it, sometimes it doesn't, but typically we've used $7,500 in the past, being charged between General Sessions, Circuit, and Chancery Court to be able to collect those courtroom security fees. In the past, we've used some of that, and they've used a lot of their reserve down. I believe they've got about somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 that's a reserve currently, and actually we've had no expenditures this year, so any revenue that we have that's come in that's been fees assessed by the courts, I'll actually pick back up and add into that reserve for next year. Any questions? I know we've covered a lot, and we're actually up to the Sheriff's Department. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump over the Sheriff's Department and the jail and juvenile services and all that other stuff until probably toward the end of the month when we'll actually I'll coordinate to have the sheriff here, but then we'll pick up and hopefully start looking at the Health Department, EMA, some of those expenditures next week. If I can get things coordinated out and I can get with Jeff and his folks, we'll try to have the Highway Department's budget for next week as well. And then we'll start looking at debt service, general capital projects, community development, finish up the expenditures with county general, and then the goal is by the first of the month, start looking at revenue, if not before.
I want to ask a question.
Okay,
I've been thinking about it a long time.
okay.
I know you, Russell, and also Dustin. I was looking at Dustin's salary, and of course I know what all you do. You and me together. And I feel like if we ever could, give them something up to what, some of the mandated.
Yep.
What's that?
And I'll be the first to argue, and I know Dustin's listening, still listening to this. Dustin's salary is a lot less than what it should be.
He doesn't even have an.
No, he's a one person office, and he filters through my office, and we provide
You
some
all work
support to him
together.
and we work great together. And I'll be the first to advocate that I would, Dustin's salary needs to be adjusted upward. I mean, all case in point with what service he provides to the county. He's not just the purchasing agent. I mean, he's webmaster. I mean, he's the one that's keeping the website up at this point. He's been the guru behind getting this Zoom to work for us during this COVID process. I mean, he goes beyond what we're paying him. And one of the things that Dustin is doing, Dustin is working on a national certification for procurement. I believe, you'll have to text me if I'm saying something wrong, Dustin, but I believe he's pushed the test off to sometime in the fall. But one of the things that Dustin wants to do is he wants that national purchasing certification, which is a big deal. And if I'll be a strong advocate for him as well as anyone else. Yes, October because of COVID. I would love for us to be able to come up with some way to bump his salary.
So revisit that one.
I think I think we might want to
Make a
revisit.
note, would that suit everybody?
$5 or $10
Did you hear that one? $5 or $10.
You wanna make a note to revisit that when we start looking at your, how much money every single department.
He does. I mean, he works with every department. I mean,
And he works with you. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
You and him work together.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
He's very supportive of me, I mean,
And you too.
he does a lot of odd
Yeah,
jobs
you
that
are.
nobody,
You might
he does a lot
do
of odd jobs that I don't have anybody else to do, that he will just pick up and take care of, but we'll
He can
make
do
a,
it. He
we'll make a
can do
note,
anything.
we'll make a note to revisit that.
we will revisit that one.
Okay. Is there anybody else have comments or questions?
Emoji.
It's not better be quiet.
Is there any other matters to, may duly come before the committee for official action at this time?
I need a first and second to adjourn.
Motion with adjourn. Motion by Mr. Rick Sager, seconded by Mr. Scott Mapp. You want to recall the roll?
We'll just
All
do
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time. I know it's a long, hard process, and